second week of a partial government shutdown. Both sides digging in over funding for President Trump's border wall.
Nancy Pelosi needs to come back from Hawaii. Less hula, more moolah for the DHS, Customs and Border Patrol, funding our border security.
A massive manhunt happening right now for the gunman who pulled the trigger, killing a 7-year-old girl in front of her family.
The president's plan to take U.S. troops out of Syria.
I feel better about Syria. I think the president's very committed to making sure that when we leave Syria, that ISIS is completely defeated.
We got to fight climate change, and the president's got to lead on that. It took Roosevelt many, many years to get America willing to go into World War II and fight the Nazis.
4th and 10, and here they come. Mayfield's pass.
People are expected to pack the streets of New York City to bring in the new year tonight.
This is the baby that is going to drop, where we will ring in 2019.
Major city to welcome in 2019.
And thousands of people are gathering to watch the annual fireworks display and laser show at the Sky Tower in Auckland.
And with a new year comes new resolutions. So we want to know, what are your New Year's resolutions? Email us at friends@foxnews.com.
Well, it is we're 18 hours away,
18
Dean?
hours.
We're 18
I was just in
hours
Auckland,
away.
though, so I feel like I just kicked it over. I feel like I'm there.
There's the clock right there. 17 hours, Rachel Campos Duffy.
Yes.
57 minutes
57.
and 43 seconds.
Well, you know, I was walking around Times Square, which, by the way, is the center of the world.
The universe.
You know, will be very soon. And, you know, there's a lot of security. There's going to be 7,000 New York City police officers, drones, God knows what else. We have Superman too. Steve Payne
I'm gonna
is
go
here
with the officers. I'm gonna be behind the officers, making sure that everything's okay on the back lines. Yeah, those guys are great. I was here last year for
You
New
were
Year's,
freezing,
and it was amazing. It was freezing. It's gonna be 50 degrees this year.
Balmy.
It's amazing.
But you also saw outside when you guys walked in, they're already out there.
Oh, yeah.
These guys don't mess around. They're already putting up the barricade. You see a number of officers out there, and that's just going to grow over the course of the next 17 hours. What is it?
50-something minutes.
2 through 7 minutes? Okay.
Well, there's another barrier, Todd,
What?
that is under a lot of controversy in our country, and that is the president's wall.
Yes.
He is putting pressure right now on Democrats to strike a deal on border security, and it comes as the government shutdown enters its 10th day.
Garrett Tenney live for us in Washington, where negotiations are at a standstill. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, good morning, y'all. It does not look like this shutdown will be ending anytime soon. Both sides are digging in, and there hasn't been any major progress or real negotiations in over a week. That is largely because, at least for now, Democratic leaders are refusing to negotiate with the White House, and Republicans are placing the blame squarely on Nancy Pelosi.
First, the Democrats have to come back. Nancy Pelosi needs to come back from Hawaii. Less hula, more moolah for the DHS, Customs and Border Patrol, funding our border security. They need to come to the table and do their job. A fully functioning democracy demands that both parties come together and that the Congress and the executive branch work together.
Based on what we're hearing, negotiations are not expected to pick up until later this week when the new Congress begins and Democrats elect a new speaker. Behind the scenes, though, a number of lawmakers in both parties have been meeting to try and work out a compromise to end the shutdown. The proposals being discussed include a combination of funding for the wall, a fix for DACA, and a number of other immigration provisions that Democrats support. The president nixed a bipartisan compromise with some of those elements last year, though, and so far, Democratic leaders say any funding for the wall is a non-starter. Now, that is a big reason why lawmakers believe this shutdown will likely go on for at least another week or two.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you, Garrett. Well, we know that we're at an impasse because
not only are lawmakers not in Washington, D.C., but the key player, Nancy Pelosi, is in Hawaii. Love that line. Less hula, more moolah. I was trying to think like Mai Tais and pan lines. I couldn't find anything to rhyme with it.
Hula and moolah. Well done.
Well done,
Kellyanne.
But it's a very good sort of sounding visual, if you will, of just how much we know that they don't want the wall and think that they need to just wait until she is Speaker of the House and she can make her deal then.
Yeah, the optics aren't real good for Nancy Pelosi on that one.
Absolutely
not. At all,
not.
And speaking of a visual, President with a tweet over the weekend really sort of set a visual for all of us. And when you think about it, it does make a little bit of sense. Here's what the president wrote. President and Mrs. Obama built/has a 10-foot wall around their D.C. mansion/compound. I agree. Totally necessary for their safety and security. The U.S. needs the same thing, slightly larger version. And so obviously what the president's doing there, he's saying structures work, barriers work, security works. It's a good thing to secure your home, protect your family. We need to do that for the nation.
You live you've lived in L.A., you've lived among all these Hollywoods.
Don't you dare call me Hollywood. Don't you
You're
dare.
not Hollywood, but you're around some of them.
Sure.
They certainly have these compounds. If they didn't work, why wouldn't?
So many, most of them, especially of the upper echelon, have walls around their houses. They have armed guards. They have the whole 9 yards because that keeps you safe.
So it's a fair argument then.
No question about it at all.
Yeah,
it's definitely a fair argument.
Absolutely. Well, some Democrat representatives are saying that a wall is medieval and not up to 21st century standards. Take a look. This is Representative Jeffries from New York, Hakeem Jeffries. Listen up.
What Donald Trump and the Republicans want to do is waste $5 billion in taxpayer money on an ineffective medieval border wall that is a 5th century solution to a 21st century problem. Yes, we need comprehensive immigration reform. Yes, we need to enhance border security, but we are not willing to pay $2.5 billion or $5 billion in wasting taxpayer dollars on a ransom note because Donald Trump decided that he was going to shut down the government and hold the American people hostage.
So according to Democrats, a wall is medieval, but it wasn't medieval, I guess, in 2006 and 2013
not at all.
when Chuck Schumer voted for that, right?
Well, those, video lasts forever. You can go on YouTube and you can see them saying these exact same things over and over again. I just want to add that I don't think a wall is medieval. I think a moat is medieval.
Are you proposing a moat?
I'm not
just get that out there right now.
But it's medieval.
Do you know what else is medieval? Walking, which is how people are coming across the border. So, I mean, I think that these kind of arguments get really silly, and I think what we really need to do is go, do we trust Representative Hakeem Jeffries from New York, or do we trust our Border Patrol?
Exactly. Well, to that point, I mean, we have a situation where in 2006, like you guys just mentioned, everybody was for a structure to protect the border. And everybody sort of thinks, oh, this is just Donald Trump's idea. No, this isn't just Donald Trump's idea. Like you were about to say, this is what the Border Patrol wants. The men and women on the ground on a day in and day out basis, they want some help. And as evidence of that, Commissioner Kevin McAleenan says this investment in a multifaceted border security, which includes some sort of a structure, is vital. Take a listen.
Our wall system priorities are derived from our agents in the field. We've asked for about 1,000 miles of wall in our top 17 priorities on the primary line. These are areas where we have a dense metropolitan area on both sides of the border where people can disappear quickly into a neighborhood in the U.S. side if we can't slow them down. And what we're talking about is not just a dumb barrier. We're talking about sensors, cameras, lighting, access roads for our agents, a system that helps us secure that area of the border.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
I mean, just call me the regular layman out in the street, but there's the guy who has to do it, and that's what he's talking
Is
about.
the problem that the president just keeps saying wall, wall, wall? I mean, when you hear that commissioner speak, he's saying, look, this is multifaceted. Some places need a wall, some need these steel slats, others we're going to have drones and other sort of technology. Is the problem that the president keeps saying wall and it's like ticking them off or allowing them to oppose it because it sounds like that's the only thing that this involves?
He's moved on to slats. He's moved on to other words. If President Trump said that you need air to breathe, there would be Democrats fighting him, saying, no, you don't, not H2O, not O2. It's
not
got to be
O2.
something else. It's got to be something else.
And we were talking football. We came out here. Bill Parcells had a great line. If you want me to make the meal, let me buy the groceries. And I think this is one of those situations where the individuals on the ground are saying what they need.
That's right.
The American government needs to provide that to them. Another big story over the weekend. This one really spoke to me because you heard it on this couch, you heard it throughout Fox News Channel and all over. A number of Republican commentators and Republican congresspeople attacking the president for what was perceived as, we're just going to remove all of our troops out of Syria immediately. And one of those people who was speaking out was Lindsey Graham. He is a Trump supporter, but he was very critical of the president's statement. Well, they had lunch yesterday. They had lunch in suits and ties on a Sunday. I was thinking about that. And Lindsey Graham says...
He's not doing the hula.
He's not doing the hula with his
mullah.
But now, after discussing this with the president, Lindsey Graham, deep breath, says, it's okay, had a good conversation. Let's listen to what Lindsey had to say.
We had a great lunch. We talked about Syria, and he told me some things I didn't know that make me feel a lot better about where we're headed in Syria. He promised to destroy ISIS. He's going to keep that promise. We're not there yet, but as I said today, we're inside the 10-yard line, and the president understands the need to finish the job. I think the president has come up with a plan with his generals that makes sense to me. The goal is to make sure ISIS doesn't come back. I think the president's very committed to making sure that when we leave Syria, that ISIS is completely defeated and we're inside the 10-yard line.
We're inside the 10-yard line, he says.
That's the red zone. You got to score.
Got to score.
I don't know anything about sports, but it sounds like we're kind of near the end.
That means you got to score. You're right there.
Well, Lindsey Graham, you know, he's a hawkish as they get inside the Senate and inside the Congress. He actually tweeted that the president won't leave Syria until ISIS is permanently destroyed, until Iran doesn't have an ability to fill the back end, and until the Kurds are protected. It sounds like this decision to leave isn't as ad hoc or on the fly as maybe the media has presented it, that he's actually talked to the generals. He has a plan. He plans to leave in a way that leaves Syria in a better place, or at least ready for other people to step up and take
Everything happens so fast these days that the president says something and everybody reacts. They get their sound bites out there. They get all that stuff out there. They don't talk to each other about what's going on. They had lunch in suits on a Sunday.
Right.
And then they found, oh, wow, we're maybe on the same page.
And a lot of this information came out in tweets and quick sound bites. Pete Hegseth sat down with President Trump, and that's going to be on tonight's big, I don't want to call it, what's the name of our show? All-American New Year. It's on, I almost said New Year's Rockin' Eve, but that would make no sense. It's on at 10 p.m. tonight. Pete has a sit-down with the president. You're going to want to sit down for that so you can learn a lot more about these policies, Syria, the border, get a little bit more in-depth than what we have just from tweets and stuff. Speaking of in-depth...
And she laughs.
Very in-depth.
Good morning.
Good
New
morning.
Year's Eve to you guys. Let's get you caught up on some of the stories that we're following, starting with this Fox News alert. A massive manhunt is underway for a gunman who killed a 7-year-old girl in front of her mom and 3 siblings. The girl shot inside a car as the family left a Houston area Walmart, the shooter pulling right beside them and opening fire. The girl's mother was also shot and wounded. At this point, it's unclear why that man began shooting.
Congratulations on your Eagles.
Yay!
I gotta say it. I'm not an Eagles fan, but well done.
All right, a new report revealing some Central American countries may actually be helping illegals from the middle of the situation going on there. We're going to have a lot more on this coming up in just moments.
Plus, in just hours, millions of people will be ringing in the new year. Janice Dean is live and at the center of it all. A terrifying new report revealing some Central American countries are actually helping migrants from the Middle East reach the U.S. border.
And joining us now is Senior National Security Fellow for the Center for Immigration Studies, Todd Bensman, who just got back from Panama. Todd, thanks for being here with us. Reading the information on this segment, it seems it all stems from a policy called, quote, controlled flow. Explain what that is and why it matters.
Sure. Well, first of all, since October, the president has been talking about Middle Easterners and terrorists coming through Latin America to our border. So that was met with a lot of ridicule and mocking. We wanted to just go down there and see for ourselves what was going on with this. So I went to Panama because Panama is a bottleneck country for migration from all over the world. They're coming in from Latin America, South America, funneled through that thin land isthmus there, Panama, Costa Rica, and then on up north. And what I found was hundreds of migrants from the Middle East, from places like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Iran, and I interviewed those people. I saw them and I interviewed those people, and most of them are on their way to the United States border where they plan to apply for asylum. How it was that I was able to so easily find, well, it actually wasn't that easy, but how it was that I was able to find hundreds of migrants from special interest countries is that Panama and Costa Rica, it turns out, have a policy called controlled flow. And with controlled flow, they actually have taken over the smuggling for the illicit networks that used to operate there. The Panamanians will collect the migrants from the Middle East and from all these other countries that I just mentioned, and they'll put them in camps, take care of them, feed them, provide medical care, and then put them on commercial buses. The buses then will take them to the Costa Rican border where the Costa Ricans are waiting. And then it's kind of a wash, rinse, and repeat situation where the Costa Ricans then move them on up to the Nicaraguan border, and in this way...
Chad, I was going to say, they're doing this because they don't want them in their country, right? So this is a way to, through a government process, a government policy, and an agreement between Panama and Costa Rica to sort of move them forward and out of their hair so they don't have to deal with it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It works for them and it works for the migrants for a couple of reasons. Well,
I was just saying, have they found any suspected terrorists?
Absolutely. What my American intelligence sources tell me, and also Costa Rican and Panamanians have told me, is that they are pulling suspected terrorists off the line, off of this conveyor belt, fairly frequently. There was a Somali just last year by the name of Ibrahim Kordim, who was pulled out of a camp just 20 miles inside of Costa Rica. He was connected, it turns out, to an al-Shabaab cell in Zambia. Okay. They pulled him out, deported him back to Africa after interrogating and all the rest. Right. And while I was in Costa Rica, immigration officials there told me that he was not the only one. There were at least 3 or 4 more pulled out of this one particular camp.
Obviously a situation that we need to be monitoring going forward because, quite frankly, before today, I did not know about this situation being as severe as it is. Todd, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
All right, California Governor Jerry Brown says fighting climate change is like fighting the Nazis in World War II. Seriously? Dan Bongino says it's just another in a long list of hysterical analogies from Democrats. He joins us live coming up.
Plus, the media mocking First Lady Melania Trump for her outfits, but they can't stop fawning over
Morning to you. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Back with some quick headlines on possible 2020 contenders. Former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe tells CNN he may challenge President Trump.
I'm not going to announce right now. I'm obviously looking at it. I've got time. I have 40 years of working for this party. I have plenty of friends in many states.
If he wants the nomination, he may have to challenge billionaire Michael Bloomberg.
I would certainly run as a Democrat. I'm much closer to their philosophy, although I don't agree with any one party on everything.
Now, Bloomberg ran as a Republican when he won New York City mayor in 2001. He still hasn't announced whether he'll run for president. And Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren may have just dropped a 2020 hint on Twitter. Her username is now eWarren instead of Elizabeth for MA. Some speculate it means she's shifting focus away from Massachusetts. So stay tuned for more. Rachel.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, from her shoes to her jackets, in 2018, the press had a field day mocking First Lady Melania Trump for her outfits that they deemed too problematic. Yet the media cannot stop fawning over Michelle Obama's fashion choices.
What's with the First Lady fashion double standard? Well, joining us now with her thoughts, senior news producer for the Daily Signal and visiting fellow with the Independent Women's Forum, Kelsey Harkness. Kelsey, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You guys both went with pink today,
Yeah,
speaking of fashion. You guys went with that today, and I went with a little purple to jump off there. So what's with this media double standard?
Well, you're right. There is such a double standard when it comes to covering First Lady Melania Trump and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama, of course, can do no wrong, whereas Melania Trump appears to do everything wrong. It's like the media is waiting for her to take a misstep. And this latest example where Melania Trump was getting off a plane after visiting a war zone in Iraq, which Michelle Obama never did, by the way. I couldn't help but just laugh at it because the press couldn't seem to figure out what was going on with these tan leather pants. These fashion editors at Vanity Fair launched some sort of investigation into them, and it's like fashion editors have never seen tan leather pants before. I think the real injustice here, though, is that Melania Trump can deal with the mocking of her clothes and her outfits. I mean, she's beautiful. She can handle that. The real injustice is the press's attention on what she's wearing rather than what she does. Melania Trump is working for so many important causes, fighting the opioid crisis, helping children, and the press just ignores that, instead focusing on what she's wearing instead.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I was not a big fan of the tan pants, just because when you photograph it, it did look like she wasn't wearing pants at some point.
Would be certainly a fashion choice,
yeah,
but that would be a
fashion statement. But that said, I mean, it's been 2 years, and other than that, I think it's been pretty impeccable in terms of her choice of pants. But there was another moment which I want to get your opinion on, because I thought it was fascinating. She went to Camp David and she wore a comfy dress, a black comfy dress, and I think flats. I mean, all women do that at some point, especially if we're going to Camp David, right? And they said, I'm going to tell you what they said, because I thought it was fascinating. The Guardian said that this wasn't her glamazon fembot Princess Perfect style, and they actually attributed it as some sort of a resistance movement towards her husband, like she was angry at him, and so she decided to wear this comfy dress, sort of like the slapping the hand thing. They would never do this to Michelle Obama, would they?
It's amazing that the media draws so many conclusions based on what Melania Trump wears. I think, again, we need to listen to what Melania Trump says and watch what she's doing, rather than drawing these insane conclusions that she's sending some sort of message through her clothing. Melania Trump is doing a great job representing the United States, both home and abroad. She has really a thankless job, and she's doing it so gracefully. You know, look, she doesn't maybe need the magazine covers because she is so beautiful, but I think she does need and deserve attention to the work that she's actually doing on behalf of children, and again, the opioid crisis, which is so important.
Kelsey, you mentioned something right there which is interesting. The magazine covers. She had been on tons of covers beforehand because she was a supermodel. And since she's been the First Lady, I think she's been on one?
In Mexico. It was Vanity Fair Mexico.
Meanwhile, Michelle Obama was on dozens, I believe. Is this just really another example of anything President Trump does that people are going to go after? I mean, anything that he has anything to do with?
Why are they afraid of putting her on a cover? I mean...
Well, because I think is it just anti-Trump bias? Is that what that is?
I think it's a lot of anti-Trump bias. I mean, fashion designers won't even dress her. But look, Melania Trump doesn't need magazine covers. What bothers me is that when Melania Trump steps forward and defends herself and defends her record, the media mocks her as if she's complaining about the type of coverage that she gets. Whereas if it's a woman on the left who steps up and defends themselves, that's called feminism. That's called standing up for yourself and being a strong, independent woman. Such a double standard.
Yeah, Kelsey, you bring up a great point. I think all these attacks are meant to bring her down. I think they're making her stronger. She seems more confident and more willing to get out there. Maybe it's backfiring. Well, thanks a lot for your opinions and for your thoughts on this, I think, important topic. So thank you, Kelsey, and Happy New Year.
And great fashion choice for the two of you.
Yeah, thanks. We're working it too here. All right. An illegal immigrant charged with murder somehow gets free. How did this happen? We're going to explain next.
And remember this scream heard around the nation and the world?
And Washington and Michigan, and then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House.
We heard some yells upstairs.
Yes, all right. Well, now Howard Dean is screaming about President Trump. Dan Bongino is here to react, and he'll have something to say, I'm sure.
Yep, live and next. And plus, Janice Dean, she's also live in Times Square. Janice, what's going on over there?
We are with the USO troop who are going to help ring in 2019. Here's a little preview.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died, who gave that right to me. And I proudly stand. Baby, I like it.
Well said.
We're looking at Times Square. It's empty there.
Yeah, that's not going to continue.
No, it's going to be what? Like they say, like
2 million people?
2
That's
million
it?
people.
Well, look at that. In that small space, 2 million people.
It's going to be crowded. We're going to check in with Janice later on because we are expecting a little bit of rain that could make some people wet, if not all of them.
That sounds no toilets and wet. This sounds
Hey, listen,
It's a horrible
comfortable than
experience.
last year. It was 9 degrees or something like that last year.
it was cold.
It's 50 degrees this year. It's going to be great.
What I love about Enrique Iglesias, he gets you pumped up. You know who else gets us pumped up? Dan Bongino. Happy New Year's Eve, Bongino.
There he is.
You and Enrique Iglesias.
This one's going to get your...
Listen, that's a... Yeah, man, I don't look like Enrique Iglesias.
I disagree.
I did.
I would totally disagree. Hey, Dan.
I don't think he's as tough as you,
Dan.
Dan, I want to get your thoughts on this because an individual that I'm sure you have some familiarity with, Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat representative from this area, was speaking out about the tragic death of that police officer out in California. And it's a very long statement, but he said something very specific about the NYPD that I want to get your thoughts on when we come back from the side. First, take a listen.
Well, that was a very tragic situation. And my heart and my prayers go out to the officer's family. My experience in New York has been different, where members of the NYPD, clearly the most professional, highly trained law enforcement entity in the country, if not the world, has been that these sanctuary laws actually help promote public safety.
Address the situation in California.
It's a human tragedy. Clearly, we have to do better in terms of preventing these type of occurrences from taking place. And that's what Democrats intend to do and will continue to do on a bipartisan fashion.
You know, Dan, obviously he didn't address the tragic situation in too much detail, but specifically he said this phrase: sanctuary laws actually help promote public safety by encouraging cooperation, and that is with regard to what he has been told by the NYPD. You were part of the NYPD. Is that what they think?
I don't know who he's talking to, but he's not talking to cops on the ground who are actually doing the work on the streets. This is an outrageous statement to make. How many... You know, a candid question, guys, and I'm desperately trying to not do what the left does to us every time there's a tragic shooting and grossly paint all gun owners one way. So I don't want to politicize this, but you can't divorce yourself from the fact that this officer in California that was killed, Ronil Singh, everybody should say his name, and everybody needs to look at that picture of him and his beautiful young child and his beautiful young wife and his dog. I can't get his dog out of me. You can't explain to his dog why the owner, the master, the kid's father, and the spouse will never ever see their dad again. Explain that to me. How that makes the public safe for losing an American patriot. Look at that picture. I can see it out of the corner of my eye on the monitor. I cannot say this enough. This is a living, breathing American hero who's gone from us now because we have awful border control and terrible laws in our books. And one more thing on this, guys. Again, I get this. Point stipulated. Not everybody who comes here illegally is going to go on and commit other crimes. They did commit a crime by entering the country illegally. But 100% of the people who come here illegally should not be here. This hero should be alive today, and Hakeem Jeffries stumbled through that answer because he has no good answer for that.
All right, another topic, we're going to switch over to Howard Dean, Dan Bongino. He's been making some statements about the president, saying that he is incapacitated mentally. Take a look.
As I've said before, I actually think the president is mentally incapacitated, and I have thought so for quite some time. I mean, he says things that he knows aren't true. Essentially, you can't really make a bargain with somebody who is irrational because they won't keep it. Republicans have been quoted off the record as saying such a thing. I think the Congress and the Republicans and the Democrats in Congress have got to do the best they can to run this country in the absence of a chief executive who's really a chief executive. And until the Republicans realize that they have an obligation to the country, not just their party, that's not going to happen.
Dan, this isn't the first time that they've said this. We saw this earlier in his presidency. This is a way that they try to, I guess, not normalize him. What's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I got to laugh. You know, you do that thing with the hands like Donald Trump, Howard Dean, Donald Trump. Let's just figure this out. You got Donald Trump, a guy who's made nearly $1 billion, maybe more, in business ventures over the years. He also runs for office for the first time, and he wins this little office called the presidency, first time out of the chute. Okay. Week and twice on Sunday.
I can literally watch it.
I know. I was just hoping we got more sound on that.
Pretty good. Again, one last thing. You got I can hear that all day long. One last thing. I got to go by state of California. Governor Jerry Brown says that fighting climate change is like fighting the Nazis in World War II. I'm sure you have an opinion on that. Nazis, it comes up quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, you have Godwin's rule, right? The first person who brings up Hitler or Nazi analogies loses an argument. And in this case, it's the Democrats. This is like, it's like the moron Olympics when it comes to this stuff with Democrats. What I mean by that is the analogies. It's like the stupid Olympics. They compete for the gold medal of what the dumbest analogy for Trump can be. And it diminishes them. But the laughable part about this whole thing is a fascist, a Nazi. Trump's cut taxes. He's deregulated government. If they had any idea of what history was really about and those tragic incidents, that was empowering government at the expense of human lives, not the other way around. I don't understand how Trump is some big tyrant who gives you back your money and your freedom and disempowers the government. It doesn't even make sense on its face, but I think reasonable people get that, and the Democrats really diminish their brand by doing this. It's making them look like a bunch of children. It's ridiculous.
All right.
Dan Bongino, love to hear your take all the time, my friend.
It doesn't matter what time of the morning, is it? He's
always on.
He's Dan Bongino.
and I just got up like 15 minutes ago.
We love it, Dan.
If I got up an hour ago, it would have been flame coming out of my mouth.
Thank goodness. I don't know if the nation can handle it. Dan Bongino, have a great New Year.
Happy New Year, Dan.
You too, guys.
Hey, and speaking of which, in just a few hours, Times Square, New York City, is going to be filled with millions of people waiting to ring in 2019.
That's right. And Fox News senior meteorologist Janice Dean is live where the ball will drop tonight. Janice?
Janice.
Amazing. Yes, we're at Times Square. A big bucket list for me. And look at the USO troop is here. Larissa, please introduce everyone to us.
Hi, my name's Larissa. This is Skylar, Tyler, Amandina, and Luke.
Fantastic. What are you going to be doing tonight?
Tonight we're going to be performing in Times Square, singing a salute to all of our armed forces.
I love it. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Oh, wow.
Well, why don't we hear you sing, and then you can think about it while you're singing and tell me afterwards.
That sounds like a good idea.
All right, take it away, USO troop.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
All right.
Fantastic. Oh, congratulations. I love the preview. So what time are you going to be performing?
8:02.
Okay, any New Year's resolutions?
To be kind.
To be kind. We love it.
Kind's
Thank you all
pretty
for
good.
coming. Happy New Year, USO troops.
Happy New Year.
8:02.
6:40 in the morning, they're singing like that.
That's
wow.
not easy, is it?
Bless him. Well, I was going to say, can I throw it off to
take it away.
Watch Fox News Channel's All-American New Year's special from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., hosted by Kennedy and Pete Hegseth and joined by Griff Jenkins, Carly Shimkus, Jedediah Bila, Tyrus, Britt McHenry, and more, including me.
Oh, you're gonna be there,
wow.
yeah?
I will be there for a
Breaking
little.
news.
Oh, good.
All right, good stuff. Looking forward to it. This is a really interesting story coming up. New York safer than ever thanks to, of course, the NYPD. And one of the reasons is a strategy known as broken windows policing. Bernie Kerik tells us how it helped transform this city when he was police commissioner. That's coming up next.
Plus, how long does the flu last? And what's the keto diet? Those are just some of the Google's top trending health questions of 2018. And we've got Dr. Nicole Saphier here to answer all those questions live. Coming up, stay with us.
We're setting Sergio Coelho Perez free in North Carolina. The 17-year-old from Mexico is accused of shooting and killing a man during a botched car robbery. He is now back in jail in Mecklenburg County, where the new sheriff ended the jail's cooperation with ICE. Bernie Sanders staffers are calling for a meeting to discuss sexual violence during the 2016 campaign. According to a letter obtained by Politico, the group of more than 24 people also want to discuss toxic masculinity in the campaign world so they can work to stop it. Sanders' campaign committee says they are open to the meeting. The failed 2016 presidential candidate is considering another run in 2020. Let's look at your headlines. Todd, send it to you.
Jillian, thanks. The city that never sleeps is one of the safest in the country, but it wasn't always that way. New York City homicides dropped dramatically from over 2,100 in 1991 to less than 300 in 2017. That crime declined due in major part to the policy implemented by now former NYPD Commissioner Bernie Kerik. He's the author of The Grave Above the Grave, and he joins me now. Mr. Kerik, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And as a personal anecdote, in fourth grade, late 80s, I wrote an essay on the things that I was the most scared of. I grew up over the river in Jersey, and one of the things was going into New York City. It was because of all the news stories about the crime. You thought if you went into the city, you were going to get murdered. But something changed in the early 90s. What was that?
We got a new mayor. 1994, Mayor Giuliani came into office. He brought in Bill Bratton. They instituted a number of policies. The broken windows theory and also the CompStat program, which was a computer-driven program to basically tell us where crime was in real time, not looking at quarterly reports, biannual reports, looking at crime daily,
right,
and attacking crime as it was.
For those that don't know what the broken windows theory is, please explain it.
The broken windows theory was where you addressed crime, quality of life crimes from the bottom up. Everything, things that are out there. You know, in Jersey, if you walked out of your house in New Jersey across the river and somebody was urinating in public in front of your house, you'd have a heart attack. That was normal, everyday behavior in New York. Graffiti, panhandling, homeless. All of these quality of life issues that were basically deteriorating the city and then driving crime as well, we started to attack, and it was under Mayor Giuliani.
Now, critics would say the goal of this is just to make more arrests and arrest more people for low-level offenses. How do you respond?
No, you arrest people for violating crime. You will arrest people. And listen, homeless, we didn't arrest homeless. We took homeless off the street. We put them in clinics. We sent them to the hospital. We did what we could to help them. But for example, just down the street on New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve, 2001, I had 25 homeless people outside a church laying in the street. It was 20 degrees outside.
Right.
You're going to leave them there? No, because tomorrow morning, I'm going to get a call that 2 or 3 of them passed away as a result of freezing to death. So you did what you were supposed to do, helping humanity, if you will. But the other stuff, it was all a part of driving down crime in the city.
A new Wall Street Journal article delves into this topic and tries to break it out for other cities across the nation. What is your advice for other cities across the nation trying to follow the New York City model?
Follow the model. You know, it's pretty simplistic, really, especially when you add the CompStat model with it, the grabbing the data, the crime data. You need leadership in the cities around the country, like Baltimore and St. Louis and Milwaukee, Chicago. You need leadership in the city that's going to give them the resources they need to do the job, give them the support they need the job, give the cops the benefit of the doubt when they're doing their job. Do what Giuliani did. If you follow that rule, you're going to have crime reduction unparalleled, as we've had in New York.
the key is going to be distancing that from partisanship that influences so many aspects of our day in and day out lives in 2018, now going into 2019.
You know what? Put the politics aside. This is about securing neighborhoods. This is about reducing crime.
Bernie Kerik, as always, a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here and explaining these important concepts. Next, the doctor is in. Nicole Saphier here to answer some of Google's most searched health questions of 2018. There's the good doctor. She's walking in. She's on call. She's ready for you. Next.
This year, Americans have turned to Google to answer billions of health questions on everything from diets to rare diseases.
That's right. And joining us now to answer some of those Google, or at least the top questions trending on Google in 2018 is our Fox News medical contributor, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Thank you for joining us and Happy New Year. We're going to get
Happy New Year, guys.
We're going to get right to it because the number one thing is keto. People want to know what the keto diet is.
The ketogenic diet has been 2018's diet fad, and it's definitely going to go into 2019. And that's essentially where you're getting rid of carbohydrates, good and bad, and you're replacing them with fats, so heavy meats. And what that does is put your body in a state of ketosis, so it's breaking down your own fats. Is it great for losing weight? Yes, you do lose weight. A lot of people start losing weight in 1 week. However, it's one of those yo-yo diets. It's very hard to sustain, so people lose weight and then they gain it back again. And so we have zero long-term studies on this because no one can maintain it. And what you're replacing those good foods with are really heavy, processed, a lot of animal fats.
Sounds
and
like
we
you don't
know
like it.
that
You don't
that's
like
not
keto.
necessarily good for long term. I don't like any yo-yo diet. I like everything in moderation. You know, stick as close as you can to the Mediterranean diet and exercise if possible. So I like that.
Good old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned.
Right there.
The next one on the list is concerning that people are looking this up. What is ALS?
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. A lot of people know this as Lou Gehrig's disease because famous baseball player had it. What it is it's a neurodegenerative disease. Essentially, nerves start dying, and we know it as an ascending paralysis, meaning it starts in your peripheries, so your legs, your hands, and it works its way centrally. So some people present with weakness, difficulty picking things up, tripping over themselves, and then eventually comes to difficulty breathing. The problem is your brain stays intact through this entire process, which is very difficult. About 5 to 10% of the population has it. That's not an insignificant amount of number. Or no, I'm sorry. 5 to 10% of those inherit it from their family, so it is inheritable. The rest we don't really know. We have a lot of research into it, and we're working on it because this is a devastating diagnosis, and there is some promise.
All right.
That's a rough one.
People want to know, how long does the flu last? I'll tell
That's
you,
very topical.
And we've had a friend of our show come on with symptoms of the flu, Brie, and she passed away. So how long does it last, and when do we know if it's serious or not?
People joke about the flu. The flu is not something to joke about, not something to take lightly. Young people, young healthy people can actually perish of this disease. You can start infecting other people within 1 day of catching the flu, and you may not even be symptomatic yet. You start getting symptoms about 4 to 7 days of your infection, and it can last for over 7 days to 2 weeks. So the rule of thumb is keep kids and people home 24 hours after the fever breaks. If you're having difficulty eating, drinking, you're not speaking well, you're sleeping way too much, just look, when in doubt, go see your doctor. And we have antiviral medications that can decrease the severity of it. And get your flu shot. It is not too late.
Yeah, I have asthma. I'm a person at high risk, so I get my flu shot every single year.
I am so glad to hear that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nicole Saphier. She's unbelievable.
She is.
It hurts when no, I'm not going to do that. All right.
We'll talk about that
I do enough of that for all of us. All right. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you,
We
guys.
are in day 10 of the partial government shutdown, and President Trump isn't letting up on the pressure he's putting on Democrats to come to the negotiating table. We're live in D.C. with how close they are to a deal.
And a pair of local women's marches are now canceled. One for high cost, the other for a lack of diversity. Is this the beginning of the end for the movement? We'll talk about that.